My brother used my son's college fund to flip a house. When I found out, he told me to calm down, it's just money. I smiled, said nothing, and walked away. 3 weeks later, he called me crying from a courthouse parking lot. Let me back up. My son Eli was diagnosed with a rare kidney condition when he was 4. Not the kind that kills you fast, the kind that slowly, quietly chips away at your quality of life, until one day the doctor sits you down and says the words you've been dreading since the first ultrasound came back wrong. He was going to need surgery. Not right away, but eventually. And the surgery wasn't cheap. We're talking the kind of number that makes your vision blur when you see it on paper. I'm a dental hygienist. I work 40 hours a week, sometimes more when someone calls in sick and I can't afford to say no. Eli's dad has been out of the picture since Eli was 18 months old. Not dramatically, not with a big fight, just quietly gone the way some men go. So it was me. It was always just me. I started saving when Eli was 5. A separate account, just for him, just for this. I named it in my head Eli's Future, even though the bank just called it a savings account. Every month, a portion of my paycheck went straight in before I could even see it, before I could convince myself I needed new tires or a better phone or one nice dinner out. I ate a lot of rice and beans that first year. I didn't care. I had a goal. By the time Eli was 8, I had $47,000 saved. That's when my brother Colin moved back to town. Colin is 3 years older than me and has always been the kind of person who fills a room. Loud laugh, big ideas, the type who can make a stranger feel like a best friend within 20 minutes. Growing up, I adored him. Even when he borrowed things and forgot to return them, even when he showed up 2 hours late to every family event, even when his business ideas fizzled out one after another, I still thought, this time will be different. He just needs the right opportunity. He had just gone through a divorce and was starting over, he said. He wanted to get into real estate. Fix and flip, buy a distressed property, renovate it, sell it for profit. He'd done his research, he said. He had a contractor friend. He just needed capital to move quickly when the right property came up. Our mother asked me to help him. That's the part I keep coming back to. She didn't ask him to figure it out. She asked me to help him. You've always been responsible, she said to me on the phone one evening while I was helping Eli with his homework. You know how to save. Colin just needs a foot in the door. I told her I couldn't. I told her the money was earmarked. I used that exact word, earmarked, because I wanted her to understand this wasn't flexible spending. This wasn't a rainy day fund. This was my son's medical future, sitting in a savings account, and I had been building it for 3 years. She said she understood. 2 weeks later, Colin came to visit. He stayed for dinner, played with Eli, helped with the dishes. He was charming and warm, and it felt like old times. Before he left, he mentioned, casually, almost as an afterthought, that he'd found a property, a foreclosure. Great bones, he said. Price to move. He just needed someone to co-sign a short-term arrangement, something informal, family to family. He'd pay me back with interest in 6 months, 8 months, tops. I said no. He called 3 more times that week. Each time I said no. Each time he found a new angle. It would help him get back on his feet. It was just temporary. I'd be making money too if I thought about it that way. Didn't I want to see him succeed? My mother called and said I was being cold. I don't know exactly when I cracked. I think it was a Tuesday. I was tired. Eli had had a rough night. His back had been hurting him again, which sometimes happened, and I'd been up until 2 in the morning sitting on the edge of his bed rubbing circles between his shoulder blades until he fell back asleep. I went to work on 4 hours of sleep and came home to a voicemail from Colin saying he really needed to know by end of week. I called him back. I told him I would lend him $30,000, not from the savings account. I would move the money through my checking first, make it clear in writing that it was a loan, that it needed to be paid back within 9 months, that he owed me interest. I typed up a simple agreement, sent it to him. He signed it and sent it back within the hour. I transferred the money. For the first 3 months, everything seemed fine. Colin sent me updates, photos of the renovation, texts about the contractor, optimistic timelines. I let myself feel cautiously hopeful. Maybe this had been the right call. Maybe he really had turned a corner. Then the updates stopped. At first I didn't worry. Colin had always been inconsistent with communication. I sent a couple of texts, got vague replies, fine, busy, almost done. I waited. In month 5, I called him. He picked up, which surprised me, and for a moment I thought maybe I'd been anxious over nothing. "Hey," he said. "Hey, I just wanted to check in. How's the property coming?" There was a pause. Not a long one, but long enough. There were some complications. I asked him to explain the complications. He explained, in the way people explain things when they're hoping you'll stop asking questions, that the contractor had walked off the job, that there had been structural issues the original inspection hadn't caught, that he'd had to bring in a second contractor who cost more, that the timeline had been pushed back. "How far pushed back?" I asked. Another pause. "A few months," he said. I told him that was fine. I told him we could talk about adjusting the timeline. I asked him to send me updated photos of the property so I could see where things stood. He said he would. He didn't. In month 7, I drove to the address he had given me. The house was there. It was finished. There was a for sale sign in the front yard with a different real estate agent's name on it, and based on the listing price I could see on the sign, it had gone on the market 2 weeks earlier. I sat in my car in front of that house for a long time. I called Colin. He didn't answer. I texted him a photo of the sign. He read it. I could see the 2 blue check marks. He didn't respond. I drove home. I made Eli dinner. I helped him with his spelling words. I put him to bed. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't drink, and I looked at the loan agreement we had both signed, and I thought about what to do next. I did not scream. I did not call my mother and unload on her. I did not send Colin a paragraph of everything I was feeling. I called my friend Dara, who had gone to law school and was now a practicing attorney in family and civil law. I asked her to recommend someone who handled debt recovery and civil fraud. She gave me a name. I called that number the next morning. The attorney. I'll call her Ms. Boss. Reviewed everything I sent her within 48 hours. The signed loan agreement, the transfer records, the text messages, the timeline, the real estate listing I'd found online, which showed the property had sold for a healthy profit. He sold it, I said, in case she hadn't understood the full picture. He used my money, completed the project, sold it, and didn't pay me back. Yes, she said, and you have documentation of all of it. What are my options? She laid them out. We could file a civil suit. Given the signed agreement and the paper trail, she was confident in the merits. We could also explore whether this rose to the level of civil fraud, which carried different implications. And given that he had received funds, completed a project, profited from it, and failed to repay per a written contract, there were some creative arguments to be made. I told her to move forward. I did not tell Colin. I did not tell my mother. I went about my life. I worked my shifts. I picked Eli up from school. We made pancakes on Saturday mornings. I let myself be fully present in the ordinary days while Ms. Voss worked in the background. About 6 weeks after I retained her, Colin appeared at my front door. He looked different, thinner, a little worn around the eyes. He was holding a paper coffee cup like a prop. "Hey," he said, "can we talk?" I opened the door wider and let him in. I didn't smile. I didn't make it warm. I just stepped aside. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had sat with my cold coffee 7 weeks earlier, and he started talking. He said the sale had gone through and it had been complicated. He said he'd had unexpected expenses. He said he was sorry he hadn't been in touch. He said he was planning to pay me back in installments once he got his footing. I listened to all of it. When he was done, I said, "Okay." That was it. Just okay. He looked at me for a moment, clearly expecting more, anger or tears or demands. I gave him none of those things. I just looked at him until he got uncomfortable and said he should probably get going. I walked him to the door. "We'll figure this out," he said on the doorstep. I said. I closed the door. 3 days later, Ms. Voss filed the suit. I won't walk through every procedural detail because honestly it wasn't dramatic in the way people might expect. There was no climactic courtroom moment where I delivered a speech and a gavel came down. What happened was quieter than that and somehow more satisfying. Colin was served at his apartment. He called me 11 times in one day. I let it go to voicemail. My mother called me 4 times. I answered once. She said I was destroying the family over money. I told her gently that I hadn't done anything except try to recover what was owed to me with documentation to back it up, and that if she wanted to be angry with someone, she might consider the person who took a written loan and treated it like a gift. She hung up. I went back to my life. The case settled before it reached a full trial. Colin's attorney, whom he had to hire, which cost him money he apparently didn't have in great abundance, reached out to Ms. Voss with a settlement offer. After some back and forth, we reached an agreement, full repayment of the $30,000 plus interest per the original contract, plus a portion of the legal fees I had incurred. The wire came through on a Wednesday afternoon while I was at work. Miss Voss texted me. I was in the middle of a cleaning with a patient, and I excused myself for 30 seconds, read the text in the hallway, and went back in. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant exactly. I felt something more like relief, the kind that settles into your body slowly, the way a room warms up when you finally fix the furnace. That evening, I transferred the full amount back into Eli's savings account. I sat there watching the balance update on my phone screen. It was more than it had been before, not a lot more, but some, and it was complete again, whole. Eli came into the kitchen while I was sitting there and asked if we could watch a movie. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "What do you want to watch?" He picked something animated, something loud and bright with talking animals. We sat on the couch with a bowl of popcorn, and I let myself just be there, next to him, in the ordinary. Colin called me twice more after the settlement. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say, and I had already said it in the only language that had made him listen. My mother and I are still not close. We talk occasionally, briefly, about nothing important. She has never apologized, and I have stopped waiting for her to. I think she believes that what I did was harsh, that families should handle things quietly, privately, in ways that don't create records and attorneys and court filings. But she wasn't sitting at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. doing the math on what Eli would need and when. She wasn't the one who went without for 3 years to build something solid from nothing. She wasn't the one who watched the balance drop and felt the floor tilt. I was. And I decided a long time ago, really decided, in the quiet way you decide things that actually stick, that there are people in your life whose love is conditional on your compliance, who mistake your kindness for a resource they can draw from, who read your softness as an invitation. You can love those people and still stop letting them cost you. That's what I did. Eli is 9 now. He's doing well. His last checkup was the best one yet. His doctor said his numbers are stable, that we have time, that when the moment comes, we'll be ready. His fund is intact. Still growing, month by month. I kept the loan agreement in a folder in my filing cabinet. I don't know exactly why. I think it's because I want to remember what it feels like to hold your ground without raising your voice, to know what you're worth and act accordingly, to smile, say nothing, and let the paperwork do the talking. I thought a lot about what made Colin believe he could take what he took and walk away clean, and I don't think it was greed exactly, or not only that, I think it was something quieter and more corrosive. He had watched me be accommodating for so long that he confused my patience with permission. He saw how I managed without complaining, how I absorbed difficulty without falling apart. And somewhere along the way, he decided that meant I was a person. Things could be done to. That's what I've come to understand about the way certain people operate. They don't look for someone weak. They look for someone they've already tested, someone who smiled when they should have pushed back, who covered for them when it cost her something, who answered the phone even when she was exhausted. They look for someone with a track record of absorbing the cost. I was that person for a long time, not because I was foolish, but because I genuinely believed that loyalty meant showing up even when it was inconvenient, that family meant giving people more chances than they'd earned. There's something in that belief that I don't entirely want to let go of, the instinct toward generosity, toward assuming the best. I think that instinct, in the right circumstances, is worth keeping. But I had been applying it to the wrong situations for too long. What changed wasn't that I became harder. It's that I finally understood the difference between being generous and being available to be used. Those two things can look identical from the outside, but they feel completely different from the inside. Generosity comes from a place of choosing. The other thing, the being used thing, comes from a place of not believing you're allowed to say no. I was allowed to say no. I just didn't believe it yet when I signed that transfer. By the time I was sitting in my kitchen at midnight doing the math, I believed it. And by the time I called Ms. Boss the next morning, I had stopped needing anyone else to validate what I already knew was true. The outcome mattered. The money came back. Eli's account is whole, and that matters enormously to me in a very practical way. But what I carry forward isn't the settlement amount. It's the memory of watching that house listing on my phone screen in the car, feeling the floor drop out, and deciding in that moment not to collapse and not to explode, to just think clearly, to take the next right step, and then the one after that. Eli is 9. He doesn't know any of this happened. One day, when he's older, I might tell him. Not the full legal drama of it, but the part that matters, that when someone took something from us, I didn't accept it, that I kept my head and did what needed to be done. I want him to know that's possible, that you can hold your ground without burning everything down, that being quiet is not the same as being defeated. The loan agreement is still in my filing cabinet. I've thought about throwing it away and I keep deciding not to. It reminds me that I did the hard thing, that documentation matters, that the truth, when you have it on paper, doesn't need you to yell.